Hello, second graders. Today we're going to look at another way that we could solve word problems when we have an unknown addend or an unknown total, and we're trying to figure out our answer and whether we need to add or subtract. So before I get started talking anymore, I want you to go grab a math board, and I want you to grab your Expo marker and your eraser, okay? And I want you to follow along with me on this board on your math board, okay? So pause the video and go get all of your supplies, and then come back and you can keep working with me, okay? All right, so we're going to answer this question, and I'm just going to read it out loud. I'm not going to write it on the board today, okay? So Mrs. Fife makes 63 sandwiches for the school picnic. This is 28 fewer sandwiches than Mr. Kapoor makes. How many sandwiches does Mr. Kapoor make? Now, we have two people, right? We have Mrs. Fife, which I'm just going to write Mrs. F, and we have Mr. Kapoor, which I'm just going to write Mr. K. All right, so we have Mrs. F and we have Mr. K. Now, who makes more sandwiches? Let's read this problem again and let's think, because that's the person, when I draw my comparison bars, that's the person whose name goes on the top, okay? Because we have our person who has the most, our person with the least, and then our more or less than, okay? And we know two of our numbers, but we don't know our third. So let's listen for the numbers we know. Mrs. Fife makes 63 sandwiches for the school picnic. This is 28 fewer, okay, so we know that 28 is going to go here, 28 fewer sandwiches than Mr. Kapoor makes. How many sandwiches does Mr. Kapoor make? Okay, so who makes more sandwiches, Mrs. Fife or Mr. Kapoor? We know that someone makes 28 fewer. Let's read again. This is 28 fewer sandwiches than Mr. Kapoor. So Mrs. Fife makes fewer sandwiches than Mr. Kapoor. So this is Mrs. F, and this is Mr. K. Right? So we don't know how many sandwiches Mr. K made, but we know that Mrs. F made 63, and that was 28 fewer. So now I need to do my addition or subtraction. Now remember, when I look at this, it's like looking at a math mountain. So my two addends go on the bottom and my total goes on the top. So when I have two addends, then it's an addition problem. If I know both my addends, I can add them together and I can get my total. So if I solve 63 plus 28, I want you to go ahead and solve that and see if you can figure out how many sandwiches Mr. K makes. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and solve it. I know that 3 plus 8 is 11, so I have 1 1 in my ones place and 1 1 in my tens place. So I have 1 10 plus 6 tens plus 2 tens, which is 9 tens. So Mr. Kapoor makes 91 sandwiches. Okay, so this is another way that we could use when we're solving problems with unknown addends, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do one more, I think is all I have. Let me double check. I might have more than one, but I think I only have one. Yep, I'm just going to do one more with you before you go on to the workbook, okay? So I want you to listen to this problem. Mrs. Tan made 82 muffins for the school picnic. This was 35 more muffins than Mr. Hero made. How many muffins did Mr. Hero make? So I have Mrs. Tan, so Mrs. T, and Mr. Hero, so Mr. H. Okay, now I need to figure out who is making more muffins than the other person. Mrs. Tan made 82 muffins for the school picnic. This was 35 more muffins than Mr. Hero made. How many muffins did Mr. Hero make? So again, I have my comparison bars. This is your time you have. You can follow along with me and draw them. Comparison bars. Okay, and I know that this is going to be more or less. This is one person and this is the other person. Okay, so Mrs. Tan made 82 muffins for the school picnic. This was 35 more. Okay, so who made more? Mrs. Tan. So Mrs. T goes on the top because she made more. She made more than Mr. H, Mr. Hero. Okay, so I'm going to put the number that I know, which I know the number for Mrs. Tan. Mrs. Tan made 82 muffins, so that goes on my top. So I know my total and I know one addend, which means that the easiest way to write this problem in a way that I can solve it is probably going to be a subtraction problem. So 82 minus 35. Now, you could write it as 35 plus, we don't know, equals 82, and you could solve it that way, and you'll get the same answer. It's just trickier because you have to go from 5, can't go to 2, so you have to go to 12, which means you're going to have a 7 there. So that gets you to 12, so you know you have a 1 up here, so you're already at 4, so you know this is going to be a 4, okay? That was probably confusing to you, which is why it's easier when you know your total and an addend to write a subtraction problem, because we know how to solve this. I need to ungroup. When I ungroup, it looks like that. Go ahead and solve your subtraction problem if you haven't done that already. 12 minus 5 is 7, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So I end up with 47 muffins is what Mr. Hero made, 47. Okay, and I see how I got the same answer both ways. This way might just be confusing for you. If it's not, you can go ahead and solve them that way. But I just want you to make sure you're doing the way that's going to make the most sense for you. Okay, so I do want you to use these comparison bars today, okay, because I think that they are going to be a very helpful tool for some of you. And I want you to use the comparison bars for the workbook, okay? And if you're done with the 2 workbook pages and you've decided that they are not a method that works for you, then on the homework, you don't have to as long as you can get the right answer, okay? But in the workbook, you need to use comparison bars, okay? All right, I need you to work on page 251 and 252 in your workbook.